because doubt is a normal part of faith. In fact, every thinking Christian I know and I've read about has had doubts, serious doubts. In fact, many of the greatest biblical heroes that we hold up, that we celebrate, that we love, went through significant doubt. In fact, the presence of doubt doesn't mean a lack of faith. Sometimes doubt is the prerequisite to a faith experience. So, as you follow along on your note card, you can download it there in the description of this video. And I hope you'll take some notes and be encouraged today that doubt is not the end of the story, but so often the beginning. And as you fill in that first fill-in today, it's pretty simple. The most faith-filled people experience doubt. The most faith-filled people experience doubt. Just think of some of the heroes of the faith, the people we look up to, like the big ones that we celebrate, right? The way that Moses doubted God. God appeared to him in a burning bush. God is speaking to this man through shrubbery, and Moses talks back disrespectfully. It's crazy. Moses doubted that God was calling him to do something through a burning bush. Think about David. David wrote some great psalms, but David also wrote some really difficult psalms based on confusion and frustration and working through emotions of, God, why didn't you work this way? I thought I understood you. Do you even exist? And for some reason, we put some of his psalms to music and call them worship songs, and there's a whole bunch we leave out. David had some significant doubts. Think about Job, right? We all know at least the generic story of Job, and he had so many doubt-laden questions that God eventually is like, dude, stop. Like shushing a toddler, just like, shh, bro, take it easy. And then he has Job actually write down these doubt questions so that all generations afterward could see themselves in his own question. Well, one of my favorite stories of doubt is John the Baptist, who's actually a cousin of Jesus, so he's family, and he's in prison. And this isn't the way he thought that faith was supposed to go, right? This is Jesus. He actually, think about this. I was in the Jordan River, beautiful place. So this whole big thing happens where Jesus gets baptized by John, and John hears a voice from heaven that says, "This is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased." And then a dove comes and descends on Jesus. And so John has seen a manifestation of the third person of the Trinity while standing in front of the second person of the Trinity, hearing the voice of the first person of the Trinity, and he still had doubts. I don't know about you. That gives you some hope for me, my doubts, my insecurities. But the story doesn't stop there. In fact, doubt is often just the start of our faith story. My favorite account of doubt, which you can read in Matthew 28:17, describes when Jesus actually returns to heaven. And it says this in Matthew 28:17. When they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. Think about that. Jesus is floating in the air, and some people are still undecided if he's God. Think about that. They literally have followed him. They've seen him miraculously work. They've seen him feed thousands of people. They're watching him fly away like Superman to heaven. And they still had their doubts. How can that be? Well, it's pretty simple. It's the same reason that we all doubt, because sometimes the things Jesus did and said were baffling. They didn't understand why or what sometimes, or how what just happened. Why didn't Jesus do what they would have done? And this is your next fill-in. It's important to understand that God uses doubt to propel us forward, often making us question why we think that way. Why does he need to check our boxes? And so I have good news for all of you who are listening who struggle with doubt. Doubt in the Christian life is not only normal, but I think often divinely orchestrated to help us know God more and to get over ourselves. In fact, I would say that God uses doubt to propel us forward in our faith, propel us forward in our knowledge of God, propel us forward out of our own little box that we've built about who God is. Charles Spurgeon, a famous preacher, once said that doubt is like lifting a foot in the air, and it can work both ways. It can push you backwards, but you'll never take a step forward until you lift your foot forward. And so often, doubt that we experience actually sets us into a position to be in faith to move forward towards God. We can always use doubt to take a step back, but we'll never actually step forward until God puts us in situations where we start to doubt our own abilities, our own perspective, our own understanding, our own goodness. In fact, doubt is one of the things that God uses to propel us towards him, but we have to raise our foot. And doubt of God usually happens when our superficial kind of faith interacts with the actual realities of the world. Because many of us, we inherited our faith. If you grew up in church or you picked up some church doctrine, maybe you were watching it on TV, never really a great way to find deep doctrine. Maybe you just borrowed it from your parents. Your mama was a Christian, so you're a Christian. Or you're not Buddhist or atheist, so you must be a Christian. But you don't actually have a faith of your own. I was talking to somebody recently who they had all their faith in a human. And when a human pastor did a very human thing and failed completely and utterly, they lost faith because a human acted like a human. Often our faith is misplaced, or it's superficial, or it's borrowed. And here's the thing, God doesn't invite us to have superficial, borrowed, secondhand, casual faith. Each and every one of us has to learn to trust God on our own. And we have to own and work through our doubts to do that. We can't borrow it. At some point, you have to choose not only to raise your foot, but to take that step forward. And that causes us to doubt our doubts and trust a God who is trustworthy. And that's what the rest of the story is going to unpack. But the final thing to understand about doubt is that doubt actually reveals the places we've shrunk God down to our size. And that's what we're going to talk about with Thomas, that we think God must do this or must act this way, or if I was God, and again, you should thank your lucky stars I'm not. Sometimes doubt reveals that God doesn't act the way we would if we were God. And the good news is we are not, and he is not us. And so my hope is that today we would not just be people who create God in our own image, but we would be people of the resurrection, letting the God of the universe, who's conquered death, hell, and the grave, actually root and establish faith in him, to let the truth of Jesus' life, death, resurrection, and sovereign rule be the defining belief of our faith and our lives.